Hello and welcome back to Mastering English Podcast,
The place where we break down English for you.
transforming those, confusing concepts into actual actionable steps you can use for fluency. I'm your host.
And I'm the other host. It's so good to be with you all today.
It is.
We are about to start a really, really deep dive into, I think, the most universal struggle in language learning.
Oh, absolutely.
If you've ever felt this specific frustration, this is for you.
Yeah, we are tackling that classic scenario, the one that I think a lot of you listening will recognize immediately. It's that feeling of, I can read a really complex article. I can watch a whole movie without subtitles.
Right.
But the second I have to open my mouth in a meeting, in a conversation, my brain just freezes.
It just shuts down.
Yeah, total freeze up.
And that frustration, that feeling, it's a symptom of a very real linguistic thing.
Right.
A phenomenon.
Okay.
And we are going to completely dissect it today. It's called the receptive productive gap.
The receptive productive gap.
Yep. It's that huge canyon between the massive amount of English you can understand.
When you're listening or reading.
Exactly, when you're consuming it. And the much smaller fraction you can actually produce yourself spontaneously.
And that's our whole mission today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to close that gap.
That's the goal.
We've got a really fascinating stack of sources here. We have some cutting-edge corpus linguistics research from the University of Southampton.
Which is fantastic stuff.
It's amazing. It actually analyzes how fixed phrases are in natural English.
With data.
With real data. And we're going to show you, with that data, why spending hours using a technique like a memory palace to learn, say, 10,000 separate words is actually slowing your speaking down.
It sounds so counterintuitive, but it's true.
It does. And we'll also show you what the university researchers say is the real secret to that instant, spontaneous word recall.
And we're also going to get into the physical side of it.
The physical.
The physical mechanics of making sounds. It's a pretty remarkable finding that so much of fluency is actually physical training, not just mental. You have to train the muscles in your mouth.
Wow, that is a powerful point. That fluency is physical.
It really is.
And that connection reminds me. We're going to put that physical training to the test a little later on, so stick around, because we're going to have a pop quiz where we'll challenge you on the very subtle but super crucial difference between articulation and pronunciation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, mastering that distinction is, I think, key to sounding crystal clear and really confident.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so before we jump in and start unpacking all of this, we have a very quick but mandatory request for you.
Yes, please.
If you want more deep dives, just like this one, detailed, actionable, and based on solid research, please just take 1 second, hit that subscribe button right now on the Mastering English podcast.
And while you're there,
give this episode a like. That one little click, it really, truly helps us bring this kind of focused, research-backed training straight to you.
okay, so the core issue, this receptive productive gap.
Right.
If we don't understand this fundamental split, we can't solve the frustration. So let's start with a foundational analysis. Let's talk about the two different types of vocabulary.
Okay, let's start with the mental inventory. We talk about vocabulary all the time, but the sources are super clear that there are two different kinds of storage. So kick us off. What is passive vocabulary?
Right. So passive vocabulary, which linguists will often call receptive vocabulary.
Receptive as in to receive.
Exactly. It's that huge storage system in your brain that has all the words you recognize, all the words you understand when you see them or hear them.
So it's when you're receiving the language.
Precisely. Reading, listening, watching a movie.
Yeah.
The moment you see or hear a word, you know what it means. You probably know its nuance, its usage, but you're just recognizing it.
That is incredibly relatable. I feel like I have a gigantic passive vocabulary in Spanish from years of, reading books.
Yeah.
But my active, productive vocabulary feels tiny in comparison.
It's extremely common. And I think it's really important we use an analogy here to really get the difference.
Yeah.
Because this concept alone is often the root of that freezing feeling.
Okay, give it to me.
Think of it like this. Passive vocabulary is like knowing all the ingredients, all the spices, all the techniques in a massive cookbook. You've read the whole thing.
Okay, I know what chiffonade is. I recognize panko breadcrumbs.
Exactly. You recognize them. You know what they are. But you've never actually cooked a meal from it under pressure. You haven't developed the muscle memory and that automatic, super fast sequencing you need to combine them and, create the finished dish for your guests spontaneously.
I see. So it's recognizing versus doing. Yeah. Knowledge versus high pressure or spontaneous output.
The knowledge is there, but the key to access it is just really slow.
Okay.
Let's look at an extended real-world scenario. Imagine an English learner, right? And they're listening to a really complex TED Talk.
Something about like behavioral economics.
Perfect. Behavioral economics. And they understand, say, 95% of the specialized vocabulary.
Words like heuristic, systematic bias,
conceptual framework, diminishing returns, all of that. And they feel great, they feel successful because they totally understood the input.
Right, mission accomplished.
But then 2 days later, they have to give a presentation to their own team on a similar topic.
Oh, no.
And instead of just effortlessly using those precise, specialized terms, they fall back on simpler, high-frequency, safe words.
Good, big idea, mistake thing.
Exactly. The specialized vocabulary was just sitting there, perfectly preserved in their receptive memory.
But it wouldn't come out.
It failed to activate for productive, spontaneous use when the pressure was on.
That is such a heartbreaking moment for a learner. The knowledge is there, but it's just unusable. Okay, so if that's the massive cookbook,
yeah,
what does the active set look like? What's the smaller, usable kit?
Right. That is your active vocabulary.
Yeah.
Or productive vocabulary. This is the smaller, highly practiced set of words and phrases you use fluently.
In real communication.
The words that come out naturally when you're speaking or writing without you having to consciously dig for them. They're there, immediately accessible.
Okay, so what's the analogy for the active set?
Well, if passive vocabulary is the giant warehouse you visit sometimes, active vocabulary is the small toolbox you carry everywhere with you.
Okay, I like that.
It's compact, it's reliable, and every single tool inside it is highly practiced. You don't have to search for the hammer. It's already in your hand, ready to go.
So that small toolbox.
Yeah.
That's what really determines your confidence and your speed in a conversation.
100%.
So if our goal is to achieve fluency, that ultimate target word for every learner, it means we have to convert that warehouse of passive words into a well-oiled, fast, active system.
That is the conversion goal. And let's do a deep dive on that M2 term right there. Fluency.
Let's do it.
In just plain English, fluency means speaking smoothly, naturally, automatically, without a lot of noticeable pauses or, excessive effort.
And it's not about perfection, right?
Critically, no. It is not about perfect grammar or having a massive vocabulary. It's about flow and speed and confidence.
Okay, so how does fluency show up in different situations? Give us those 5 distinct context-specific examples.
Okay, so we need to see it as a spectrum of ease and comfort.
Right.
So 1, the formal example. Achieving high linguistic fluency requires dedication to daily immersion and consistent, deliberate practice of output drills.
Very academic. Focus on the process.
Exactly.
Right.
2, the casual example. I feel like I'm finally finding my fluency in casual conversation now that I'm practicing self-talk regularly.
Okay, that's more about comfort, naturalness.
Yep. 3, the funny example. My fluency completely disappears the second I meet a native speaker who talks faster than a coffee machine.
Huh. I've been there. That's about speed and pressure.
Totally. 4, the historical example. The renowned orator achieved great political fluency only after years of rigorous practice in classical rhetoric.
Focus on history, training.
And 5, the philosophical example. Fluency allows the speaker to seamlessly bridge the gap between abstract thought and concrete linguistic expression, minimizing the cognitive load.
Ooh, I like that. The bridge between thought and speech.
That's what it's all about.
That distinction really shows it's about expressive comfort, not perfection. Okay, let's do an extended scenario role play to test this out.
Let's
say I'm in a job interview. You're the interviewer.
Yeah.
And you need to test my conversational fluency under a bit of pressure. My goal is to focus on flow, not on being perfect.
Okay, I'm the interviewer. Thank you for coming in. We've reviewed your resume. Could you please describe a challenging project you managed recently? And focus less on the specific outcome and more on the collaborative process, how you maintain team cohesion.
Okay, sure. Well, in the long run, I think the biggest challenge wasn't really the technical side of things, but getting the 3 different teams to communicate effectively. We had to hold several, unstructured meetings just to break the ice and make sure everyone felt safe enough to share their honest point of view, especially the junior members. By the way, we ended up ditching the waterfall method and adopted a more incremental approach, which ultimately sped things up a lot.
See that? See how smooth that was?
It felt pretty good.
You didn't pause to calculate the grammar for phrases like in the long run or by the way. You just activated those pre-packaged phrases, those chumps. You pull them out as single units. That's a true sign of fluency activation.
It felt automatic.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't building those sentences word by word.
Yeah.
I was just grabbing those ready-made chunks.
That's the secret.
Okay, so let's look at the useful word partnerships, the collocations.
Yeah.
Around this idea of fluency.
Right. So when we talk about fluency, we use some key collocations. You actively work to develop fluency. That's the process.
Okay.
You can aim for conversational fluency if your main goal is, social interaction. You always want to increase fluency through practice.
Right.
The big picture is your overall fluency, which covers all your skills. And the sort of gold standard for many advanced learners is near native fluency.
Okay, so if fluency isn't about perfection, what is the one crucial nuance that we absolutely need to remember?
The crucial nuance, and this is backed up by communication studies, is that fluency is often valued more than perfect grammar in the real world.
More than perfect grammar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Communication that is courageous and smooth and powerful, even if it has a few minor mistakes, is generally way more effective than speaking perfectly, but haltingly.
Where you pause every 2 seconds.
Exactly. If you're constantly hesitating, even if your grammar is flawless, you are sacrificing fluency. And people value the flow.
So we know the gap exists. We've defined it. But why? Why does the brain freeze under pressure?
Yeah.
The sources point to 3 specific barriers, right?
Yes, 3 specific barriers that stop that passive knowledge from turning into active speech. The first one is the automaticity block.
Automaticity.
And this one is fundamentally physical.
Physical.
Not mental.
It starts as a physical challenge. It's the incredibly difficult transition from abstract linguistic knowledge, the rules and words in your passive memory, to the rapid physical motor action of your tongue, your lips, your mouth muscles.
So reading and listening don't train that.
Not at all. They're passive, they train your eyes and ears, but they do absolutely nothing to train your physical articulators to move quickly and accurately. You need deliberate physical training for that. It's muscle memory.
Okay, that's like knowing the entire history of the marathon. You've read all the books. But that doesn't mean your legs can actually run one.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The theory is there, but the physical training hasn't happened, so the action fails.
Wow. Okay, what's barrier number 2? The second is the linguistic block. This is the structural challenge. It's the inability to rapidly assemble words into correct, natural-sounding sequences.
This is where translation comes in.
This is exactly where the problem is. Learners often default to translating word for word from their native language, their L1. They know the individual English words, but they lack the internal map of the proper collocations, the natural word partnerships.
And that calculation takes time.
So much time. If you have to calculate grammar and word placement for every single sentence, you stall. That calculation time is the linguistic block.
And when you stall, when you feel that hesitation, that's when the third problem takes over, isn't it?
It is. A hesitation feeds the psychological block.
The fear.
This is the fear of failure, the anxiety, the self-consciousness. The sources are really clear that this fear acts as a literal physical block. It leads to that mental freeze we started with.
It was a chain reaction.
It's a complete chain reaction. The moment you start translating in your head and worrying about being judged, your automatic speaking pathways just shut down.
Okay, so if we've diagnosed the physical, the structural, and the psychological barriers, how do we start breaking them down? It sounds like we need some very structured, very frequent training for that physical side first.
We do, and the very first step is just internalizing the concept of consistent practice.
Consistency.
This means you need to dedicate short, achievable segments every single day. We're talking 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes. Not these infrequent, long, exhausting cramming sessions.
Right.
You start slow, you focus completely on clarity and the physical movements, and only then do you gradually increase the speed, once the habit is there.
Well, why is 15 minutes a day so much better than, say, 5 hours on a Saturday?
Yeah.
I think a lot of students feel like they should just immerse themselves really intensely on the weekend.
It's all about how your brain forms habits and consolidates memory. It's neurological.
Okay.
If you cram for a test, most of that information stays in your short-term memory and it gets filtered out very quickly.
Yeah.
The forgetting curve is steep. Consistent practice is like dripping water carving a stone. Sporadic practice is a flood that comes and goes without leaving a permanent mark.
I love that.
That small daily repetition is neurologically essential for moving abstract knowledge into an automatic procedural habit. We have to fall to the level of our habits because under pressure, your goals don't matter if the habit isn't there to support you.
It's all about training that automaticity.
Yeah.
My attempt to learn the guitar failed because of this exact thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'd practice for 5 hours on a Saturday, trying to learn some complex song. And then by the next week, I'd completely forgotten the finger positions.
Right.
But 15 minutes a day, just focused on one simple chord change, would have been so much more efficient for building that muscle memory.
That is the perfect real-world analogy. Your brain and your muscles, they need those frequent small periods to consolidate the motor learning. They need constant reminders that this new language pathway is a priority.
Okay, so what's one of the most powerful techniques for building that muscle memory and rhythm? The sources mention shadow speaking.
Yes. Shadow speaking. This is an M2 technical term, and it is incredibly potent.
So what is it?
It's defined as listening to a short piece of native audio, pausing it, and then immediately repeating or mimicking the speakers. And this is the key part. Their intonation, speed, and rhythm.
Okay.
You're matching the prosody, the music, the pitch, the stress patterns of the speech.
But wait, here's the crucial question for me. What's the difference between shadowing and just repeating what I hear? I repeat phrases all the time.
That's a great question. Just repeating focuses mostly on recognizing the individual words and maybe the grammar.
Okay.
Shadowing focuses intensely on the prosody, the music. You are physically tuning your mouth and your ear to the flow, to the liaisons, how words connect together, to the stress points, to the rise and fall of the voice.
And when I shadow, I'm physically embodying the rhythm of the language.
Yes, you are training that automaticity block directly.
Okay, so let's look at the 5 dimensions of this technique through the examples.
Okay. 1, the formal example. Researchers recommend rigorous practice of shadow speaking for improving L2 prosody, which directly impacts a listener's perception of fluency.
Okay.
2, the casual example. I shadowed that podcast host's phrases the whole way home on the bus until I finally matched the relaxed conversational tone.
I do that.
3, the funny example. I was caught shadow speaking the villain's dramatic monologue in the shower, trying to get that perfect menacing intonation.
Ah, yes.
4, the historical example. The method is similar to techniques used in classical rhetoric training, where students would mimic master orators to absorb their delivery style.
Right.
And 5, the philosophical example. Shadowing allows the learner to physically embody the rhythm of a foreign language, solidifying the crucial link between auditory perception and motor output.
That link between hearing and speaking, that's the core mechanism we're trying to build. Okay, let's do a role play. Let's pick a simple movie line. I'll try to shadow it poorly, focusing only on the words, and you correct my music.
Perfect. Let's take a common, slightly emphasized phrase. I think we should take a proper break now.
Okay.
Try to match the natural stress and rhythm of that phrase.
Okay, here's my bad version. I think we should take a proper break now.
See? See how you pause between every single word?
Yeah, it was very robotic.
Your brain was retrieving each word as a separate, isolated unit. Native speech doesn't do that. Listen again to the music. I think we should take a proper break now.
Yeah.
The stress hits think and break, and the words take a proper break just. They merge into one stream of sound.
Okay.
Try to make those unstressed words flow into the stressed ones.
Okay, let me try again. I think we should take a proper break now.
Much, much better. You felt that.
Yeah, it felt more like one single thought.
You focused on the flow, not just the dictionary definition of each word. You're bypassing the linguistic calculation and training the motor sequence for that whole phrase.
So what are the key collocations and practical tips for shadow speaking?
Right. So we talk about doing practice shadowing, running intensive shadowing drills, and making sure it's focused shadowing.
Meaning you know what you're listening for.
Exactly. Am I focusing on speed or intonation? The goal is effective shadowing that leads to improved intonation shadowing. And here's the crucial nuance. Start with transcripts or subtitles to get oriented.
Okay.
But the sources say you have to get rid of them as quickly as possible. Your focus must shift entirely to the sound and rhythm, not the written word.
What if it's too fast?
Always pause and slow down the original audio if you need to. There's no shame in that. Catch the exact speed first.
Okay, now for a technique that requires no partner, no materials, and can be done literally anywhere, anytime. Self-talk. This seems vital for activating your output when you're alone.
Oh, it's huge. Self-talk is the M2 technique of just speaking to yourself or even just mentally verbalizing your thoughts in English throughout the day.
Why is that so powerful?
Right. Because it creates an enormous amount of valuable, low-pressure practice. You're always there, so you have a captive audience and guaranteed daily practice time.
It sounds so simple, but I think people need the granular steps. Like, how do I actually integrate this into my life without feeling, crazy?
The sources give 5 clear steps to structure it.
Mm-hmm.
First, morning routine narration.
So just say what I'm doing.
Exactly. I'm pouring the coffee. I need to grab my phone charger. Where are my keys? I must brush my teeth.
Okay. What's step 2?
Decision verbalization. Express your thoughts on choices you're making. Should I take the bus or the bike today? The bike is slower, but, the exercise is good for me.
Number 3.
Emotion expression. Articulate how you're feeling. I feel a little stressed about the traffic, but I'm excited about the meeting later.
4.
Activity planning, talk through your schedule. First, I'll finish this report, then I have to call the bank, and finally, I need to pick up groceries.
And the last one.
Reflection practice. Summarize your day before bed. Today was productive. I finished 3 major tasks. I felt pretty confident during that negotiation.
Okay, but here's the big question, the one everyone is thinking. If I'm talking to myself, who's going to correct my mistakes? Isn't that dangerous? Won't I just be practicing my own errors over and over?
That is a very common and very critical concern. But our sources address this directly.
And what do they say?
The primary non-negotiable goal of self-talk is fluency and activation, not accuracy.
So just getting the words out.
Yes. The purpose is to keep the channel open, to practice retrieving words quickly, to practice the physical act of speaking without hesitating. If you stop every time you make an error, you're actually training your brain to stall and freeze.
So you save the accuracy for later.
Accuracy comes later in a structured correction environment. This time is just for pure flow.
That's a huge psychological shift. Giving yourself permission to be imperfect in the name of speed. Okay, let's hit the 5 examples for self-talk.
Right. 1. Formal example. Self-talk is a proven metacognitive method for bridging the receptive-productive output gap by significantly increasing spontaneous linguistic output.
Okay.
2. Casual example. I mostly use self-talk when I'm walking the dog, Russ describing the weather and what he's sniffing.
Yeah.
3. Funny example. My self-talk is usually just an internal, agonizing debate about which snack to eat next, using increasingly complex vocabulary.
I can relate.
4. Historical example. Ancient Greek and Roman philosophers frequently used internal dialogue, which is very similar to structured self-talk, for reflection.
And 5.
The philosophical example. Self-talk solidifies the connection between cognition and linguistic output, ensuring abstract thought leads immediately to concrete speech.
Let's do a role play. I'm going to narrate my inner monologue trying to decide what to pack for a quick weekend trip, and I'll force myself to use descriptive adjectives.
Okay, narrate everything. The decisions, the feelings, the planning. Go.
Okay. I need to choose my clothes for this weekend. It's supposed to be a little bit chilly in the morning, so I definitely need to bring that heavy blue sweater. I don't want to wear that too formal black jacket. I think the brown leather one is more casual and suitable. I should probably check the weather again because it might be torrential rain later, and I really don't want my new expensive shoes to get completely damaged.
That was excellent. You just activated so much vocabulary.
That felt good?
You used several descriptive adjectives, and you even pulled out a high-level collocation torrential rain without pausing to translate. You succeeded in the goal, which was spontaneous activation.
Okay, so what are the key collocations and nuances for successful self-talk?
Well, you should strive for daily self-talk. You want to make it a habit of continuous self-talk. And sometimes you can do structured self-talk when you're trying to integrate new vocabulary.
So it's always productive.
It should always be productive self-talk, focused only on output. And for a lot of learners, it's best if it's private self-talk, just to remove that external pressure of being judged.
And the key nuance?
The key nuance for long-term activation is to integrate new vocabulary you learned that same day into your self-talk routine. If you learned the word meticulous this morning, force yourself to use it 3 times this afternoon while you're narrating your day.
That's how you make it stick.
That's how you move it from the warehouse to the toolbox.
Okay, we've established that fluency is flow. But flow is pretty useless if no one can understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
So now we move into the second major pillar, clarity.
Right. And clarity of speech is defined as effective communication that's achieved through precision, proper speed, and engaging delivery. It's the total package that makes sure your message is not just audible, but actually intelligible, understandable.
What's the analogy for this one?
Clarity of speech is like a well-focused camera lens. Without it, the image, your message is blurry and indistinct. It doesn't matter how interesting your idea is if the listener can't focus on the words you're producing.
Okay, but how does clarity differ from just having good pronunciation? That's where I always get confused.
Clarity is the whole package. Pronunciation is just one part of it. We contrast clarity of speech with mere pronunciation, which is just saying the individual word correctly according to the phonetic patterns.
So you can have good pronunciation but bad clarity.
Absolutely. You can pronounce every single word perfectly in isolation, but if your pacing is all over the place, your articulation is lazy, or your volume is too low, you still lack overall clarity.
Okay, so let's break down those three vital components that make up the whole concept of clarity.
Okay, number one is articulation. This is the physical production of sound. It's using your tongue, your lips, your teeth, your articulators to produce distinct, separated speech sounds.
And when you don't do that,
If you skip syllables or mash words together, those are called misarticulations, and they lead directly to misunderstanding.
okay, number two.
Number two is pronunciation. This is the rule-based part. It's saying words correctly according to the accepted phonetic patterns. Getting this wrong really affects your credibility and causes confusion. You know, the classic beach versus bitch example.
Right, and the third component.
Number three is pacing. This is the rhythmic component. The speed of your delivery. Too fast and you start mumbling and blurring your points. Too slow and you sound unnatural and people lose interest. Clarity is all about finding the right balance.
Let's zoom in purely on articulation. What is the precise technical definition?
Articulation is the mechanical production of distinct sounds. It's defined as the way speech sounds are formed physically using the articulators, the tongue, lips, teeth, jaw, and soft palate. It is the motor skill of turning air into specific sounds.
Okay, let me pause on a listener question. I hear articulation and enunciation used all the time. Are they the same thing, or are we just splitting hairs here?
That's a really key distinction. They are not the same.
Right.
Articulation is the mechanical, physical production of the distinct sounds themselves. It's the how. Enunciation is the overall act or manner of speaking clearly and precisely, making sure every single syllable is intelligible and fully sounded out.
So articulation is the engine.
And enunciation is the result of that engine running smoothly and completely.
Got it. Okay, give us those 5 distinct examples of articulation in practice.
Okay. 1, the formal example. The speech therapist focused on the patient's articulation of alveolar consonants, which require precise tongue tip placement.
Very mechanical.
2, the casual example. I have so much trouble with the articulation of the sound in English. I keep saying D or T.
A super common error.
3, the funny example. My dog tried to articulate his desperate need for a walk by making a very complicated series of whines and grunts.
Physical attempt.
4, the historical example. Early linguistic studies heavily emphasized the physical mechanics of articulation as the foundation of all sound production.
The theory.
And 5, the philosophical example. Articulation is the physical manifestation of abstract language structure, turning pure thought into audible, tangible reality.
That focus on alveolar consonants, the sounds made with the tongue near the ridge behind your teeth, brings us back to the practical side. Let's do an extended role play, focusing on articulation drills for problem sounds, like L and R.
Great idea. And we are going to intentionally build stronger physical memory by exaggerating the mouth movements. This directly fights that automaticity block.
Okay.
So for the English R sound, you need to pull your tongue back into the middle of your mouth, but the tip shouldn't touch the roof. It's often called a recroflex R. Try saying, ready, rocket, roar, rubber.
Okay, I'm exaggerating it. Ready. Rocket. Rep-rober.
Good, you can feel that muscle working. Now contrast that with the L sound. For the L, the tip of your tongue needs to touch the alveolar ridge right behind your top front teeth. Say light, lovely, lift, lemon.
Okay, really focusing on the tip. L light, L lovely, L lift, L lemon.
Exactly. By exaggerating the movement, you are forcing the physical difference between those two sounds into your muscle memory. This is articulation training in its purest form.
So what are the collocations and nuances for good articulation?
We aim for clear articulation and precise articulation. Learners need to constantly work to improve articulation by using specific articulation drills
All leading
to effective articulation. And the sources note a really useful nuance here. In loud or distracting environments like a busy cafe or a bad Zoom call, you should slightly exaggerate your speech sounds and mouth movements to make sure you're understood.
So besides those drills, what are the other mandatory exercises for physical control?
Well, first we have the infamous tongue twisters.
She sells seashells.
Exactly. And their main purpose isn't humor, it's functional. They refine your articulation and ensure crisp, distinct speech by building that rapid muscle memory for difficult sound transitions.
Okay, what else?
Second, targeted phonation exercises. These are really focused on muscle coordination. Things like practicing lip trills, vibrating your lips together like a motor. That improves muscle control. And also reading aloud. That helps you practice controlling your pacing. Use a timer, record yourself, and then listen back to critique your own speed.
And the third exercise is what we just did in the role play.
That's right. Exaggerating mouth movements while speaking. If you feel a little bit silly doing it, you're probably doing it right. You're building a stronger, more deliberate physical memory of where your articulators need to be.
Okay, let's wrap up clarity by talking about the rhythm and speed, or pacing.
Pacing is so critical for being understood. We have to maintain a moderate pace. The goal is always balance, not blurring words together by speaking too fast, which just leads to mumbling.
But also not speaking so slowly that you sound unnatural and people get bored.
Exactly. Thoughtful pacing is often the single biggest factor in how clear you sound to other people.
And what about those moments when you need a second to think, but you want to avoid saying, or like?
You replace the filler with a pause for emphasis.
A strategic pause.
Yes. Strategic pauses let the audience absorb what you just said, and crucially, they give you time to retrieve your next thought without using a vocal filler. It creates this powerful, natural rhythm that makes you sound more thoughtful and clear.
And finally, what about being loud enough without shouting?
You have to learn to project your voice properly. Use good posture. Breathe from your diaphragm, not your throat. This lets you project sound efficiently without straining your voice, which ensures people can hear you clearly.
Okay, so if shadowing and articulation deal with the automaticity block, then mastering chunks and collocations is how we deal with the linguistic block, that slow process of building sentences. This feels like the ultimate shortcut to sounding natural.
It really is. So let's define our M1 concept here. A collocation is the natural, customary pairing of words that native speakers use together frequently.
So it just sounds right.
It just sounds right because it's used so often, and it's characterized by restricted co-occurrence. Some words just don't naturally go together with other words.
Give me that flavor analogy again. It captures it so well.
Collocations are like specific flavors that only taste good together, like salt and caramel. You wouldn't randomly pair salt and mayonnaise, even though they're both condiments.
Right.
In language, we combine words to make heavy rain, but we almost never say strong rain, even though strong also means intense. Heavy just naturally collocates with rain. Strong does not.
So we contrast collocations with combinations that are like grammatically okay but sound totally weird.
Exactly. We contrast the natural collocation, make a decision, with the grammatically fine but very strange, do a decision. The second one is technically okay, but it sounds unnatural because native speakers retrieve the chunk, make a decision as one single indivisible unit.
And this is where translating from your first language really fails.
It fails completely. The classic example is weather intensity. We say heavy rain, not strong rain. If you translate the phrase for intense rain word for word from your native language, it will probably sound unnatural in English because the collocation pattern is unique to English.
So words aren't isolated units.
They are not. They exist and function in these highly restricted partnerships.
Okay, taking that one step further, we have fixed phrases, which are also known as chunks.
Yes, this is an M2 term. A fixed phrase is a complete multi-word expression that always appears in the exact same order with a specific, often idiomatic meaning.
Like, by the way.
Or sooner or later, or break the ice. They function as a single unit. You retrieve them whole, just like you would retrieve a single word.
But are chunks just bigger vocabulary words? Or do they do something more?
They are so much more powerful. They are complete, ready-made phrases that you pull instantly from a mental phrase library, completely bypassing the assembly line.
So you're not building the sentence.
You're not spending precious cognitive energy assembling words, checking grammar, and so on. You just pull the whole chunk. It immediately accelerates your fluency.
Okay, Let's look at the 5 dimensions of these fixed phrases.
1. Formal. The CEO ended his memo with the fixed phrase in the long run, indicating a strategic, future-oriented perspective. 2. Casual. To break the ice at the party, I immediately told a terrible joke.
A classic strategy.
3. Funny. My dog thinks the fixed phrase time to go is a highly specific command that only means treat time. Ha! 4. Historical. Many fixed phrases, like high and dry, entered English through specialized maritime and seafaring terminology.
Oh, that's interesting.
And 5. Philosophical. Fixed phrases represent the crystallization of common human experience, giving us prepackaged linguistic tools for universal conversational needs.
Okay, let's do a role play where I try to use a new fixed phrase and you correct my context to show why precise usage is so important. Let's use in the long run.
Okay, I'll set the scene. We're discussing vacation plans. I'll start. Where should we go this summer? I'm torn between the city and the mountains.
I think we should go to that remote cabin in the mountains. It's more expensive this year and it's far away, but in the long run, I think we'll appreciate the quiet and the nature more than the busy city.
That's a perfect application. You used it correctly to mean considering future consequences. Now let me change the context. We're late for a meeting. We need to leave now. Should we take the car or the train downtown?
Okay, we should take the train. In the long run, the train is much faster because of all the traffic on the highway.
See? That doesn't quite fit.
Why not?
In the long run implies weeks, months, or years later, you needed something immediate. You could have just said, the train is faster, by the way, because of rush hour, or just, actually, the train is faster.
Got it. So even a slightly wrong context can throw off the whole flow for a native speaker. The precision matters a lot.
It matters immensely. And for fixed phrases, we talk about trying to master fixed phrases, recognizing common fixed phrases, and using conversational fixed phrases. And the key nuance is that these phrases add personality and help you navigate conversations smoothly. They are essential conversational lubricants.
So how do we master them? What are the practical strategies to move these chunks from passive to active?
Okay, strategy 1 is the reading strategy.
Just read a lot.
Read extensively, but strategically. When you're reading, don't just look for single words. Highlight or write down the whole phrases that sound natural and flow well. Look for the partnerships.
Strategy 2.
Thematic notebooks. Organize your collocations by themes, phrases about sports, work, technology, emotions. This strengthens the connections in your brain and makes them easier to retrieve when you need them. Active listening. This means turning your passive media time into active learning. When you're watching a movie, pause it and immediately repeat natural-sounding phrases using that shadowing technique we talked about.
And then we get to the core idea for activation, the personalization mandate.
This is critical. To move words from passive to active, you have to embed them in a personal, meaningful context related to your life, your interests, your daily activities.
So no more generic textbook examples.
Stop using the teacher gave the student an assignment. Instead, write, I'm making progress in my Python class, or I had to complete 2 assignments for my new boss. Personal connections are stickier.
And how do we practice combining words creatively?
The best exercise for this is the vocabulary integration challenge. You write short stories, emails, or paragraphs that force you to use several of your target words at the same time. This forces creative application and really boosts active use.
And finally, using physical cues.
Right. Use your environment. Put notes with target phrases on your wall, make them your phone's wallpaper, set alarms that prompt you to use them. This constant physical reinforcement helps cement the chunk in your mind.
Okay, we know we shouldn't just memorize lists. So how do we make these multi-word chunks stick for good?
We have to use methods that engage memory on a deeper level. First, visualization. Create powerful, almost absurd mental images.
Like what?
For heavy rain, picture raindrops falling like small gray stones, so you need a metal umbrella. For break the ice, imagine someone literally using a giant pickaxe to start a stiff conversation.
Okay, second.
The repeated use of personal example sentences. Like we said, anchor every new phrase to your own direct experience. I'm finally making progress in my math class, not some generic sentence.
And third, the scientifically proven method. Spaced repetition.
Yes, our M2 technique. This is the most effective tool we have against the forgetting curve. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at increasing intervals, after 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days. This systematic timing maximizes retention and moves knowledge from short-term to permanent memory.
Now, here is the critical data point we teased at the start.
Yeah.
I tried memorizing thousands of words using a memory palace. a really effective mnemonic for lists. Why did that fail me when I tried to speak spontaneously?
This is what the researchers found when they studied retrieval speed. The process of mentally walking through the rooms of your memory palace to find the word cultivate is far, far too slow for spontaneous, real-time conversation.
Wow.
In a high-stress conversation, you need instant retrieval, a direct link from the concept to the L2 word. A memory palace is amazing for detailed sequential data, but it fundamentally fails the spontaneity requirement of active speaking.
That reframes the entire purpose of that tool. So the simple flashcard based on immediate recall is actually better for speaking speed.
For this specific purpose, yes.
Okay, let's define spaced repetition with our 5 examples.
Okay, 1, the definition. Spaced repetition is reviewing information at increasing, scientifically determined intervals to actively fight the brain's natural tendency to forget.
Right.
2, formal. The study used automated spaced repetition algorithms to test long-term lexical retention.
3, casual. I use my flashcard app for spaced repetition every morning on my commute. I do that.
4, funny. My brain clearly needs aggressive spaced repetition for all the phrasal verbs. They just refuse to stick.
Totally.
And 5, the philosophical example. Spaced repetition honors the natural mechanics of human learning by optimizing input timing based on the brain's own efficiency.
And what are the necessary collocations and nuances for using this?
We look for effective spaced repetition strategies. We learn to use spaced repetition software like Anki. We want an automated spaced repetition schedule. And we work to optimize spaced repetition times based on our own data.
And the nuance.
The key nuance is that when you're making flashcards for collocations, many experts recommend putting the whole phrase, or at least the key verb-noun partnership on the card, not just the isolated word. You need the context.
We're returning now to that third barrier, the psychological block. We have to confront the monster of language anxiety and the fear of failure.
Yes, and this M2 concept is maybe the single greatest barrier to advanced fluency. It's a huge psychological hurdle that causes learners to instinctively avoid speaking opportunities, which completely stops their growth.
And it's worse for adults, right?
The sources emphasize that for adults, language learning uniquely challenges our established sense of competence and our identity, and that leads directly to freezing up and withdrawing.
What are the specific psychological barriers beyond just being shy?
They're multi-layered. There are cultural identity concerns, the tension between your L1 culture and adopting L2 speaking styles. There's the severe impact of stereotype threat, that anxiety over confirming a negative stereotype about your group. And then there's just the raw general anxiety about making mistakes in front of other people.
That's a lot to deal with. If the anxiety is so tied to our identity, what's the simple secret we need to internalize to start fighting it?
The secret has to be repeated every single day. Mistakes are your friends, not your enemies. A mistake is empirical proof that you are trying. It is absolute proof that you are brave enough to risk it. The research is totally clear. You cannot learn to speak without making hundreds and hundreds of mistakes.
So courage is more important than perfection.
In this context, courage holds far greater practical value than grammatical perfection.
Let's look at the 5 examples of how anxiety shows up.
1, formal. Reducing language anxiety is essential for achieving optimal second language acquisition outcomes, sometimes proving more critical than cognitive aptitude. 2, casual. My anxiety spikes so much when I have to order food at a restaurant because I worry I'll mispronounce the dish name.
That's a big one.
3, funny. I once had a nightmare where I was speaking complete, unintelligible gibberish to a huge crowd during a presentation.
Oh, the classic anxiety dream.
4, historical. Research has consistently identified affective factors, emotional and psychological influences, as powerful moderators of all learning outcomes.
And 5.
The philosophical example. Confronting linguistic anxiety is the first essential step toward linguistic liberation and achieving expressive self-assurance.
Okay, and the key collocations for managing this monster.
We need to learn how to actively manage anxiety and deal with specific speaking anxiety. For many learners, this is characterized by high anxiety, but we can work to overcome anxiety, specifically performance anxiety, using techniques like positive self-talk.
If the problem is fear, the solution has to be building safety. How do we create what the researchers call psychological safety?
Right. This M1 concept is all about establishing a robust learning environment where you feel completely secure taking linguistic risks without fear of being judged or ridiculed.
And what's the analogy that helps us remember this supportive environment?
Psychological safety is like a trampoline. You feel secure enough to jump high and try complex, risky moves because you know the surrounding net, the supportive culture, will safely catch you if you fall and make a mistake.
Okay, let's look at the granular practices required to build this environment for ourselves or for our students.
First, normalized error making. Explicitly frame mistakes as valuable learning opportunities, not as failures. Talk about your own errors openly.
Right.
Second, growth mindset culture. Foster the absolute belief that language ability develops through effort and practice, not fixed talent. Always use language that emphasizes the process over inherent ability.
So you're developing your skills, not you're a natural.
Exactly. Third, judgment-free zones. Designate specific practice activities as accuracy-free zones, where the only goal is fluency and communication flow, with a clear rule of zero immediate correction.
And fourth.
A technique called graduated exposure therapy. This involves intentionally identifying situations that cause low to moderate anxiety and gradually working your way up the difficulty scale.
So you intentionally plan for small failures.
Yes, like asking a stranger for the time. It reclaims your control over the anxiety and normalizes the experience of making small mistakes.
When we do enter a correction zone, what should the teacher or language exchange partner focus on? You can't correct everything.
No, you can't. They should use selective correction. That means they only focus on patterns of error or mistakes that really block the meaning, not every single grammatical slip. Overcorrection just kills confidence.
And how do we correct someone without making them feel bad?
Use indirect methods like recasting. This is where the listener repeats the speaker's statement but seamlessly includes the correction.
Give me an example.
If the learner says, "I go to the store yesterday," the partner just keeps the conversation going and says, "Oh, you went to the store yesterday. What did you buy?" It provides the correction without interrupting the speaker's flow.
And for those in language exchanges, what are the 3 mandatory rules to make sure it's fair for both people?
These are essential. 1, set clear expectations. Are you practicing formal speaking or just casual texting? Decide beforehand.
Okay.
2, enforce time division. Use a timer. 10 minutes in English, 10 minutes in your partner's language. Strictly. This ensures fairness.
And 3,
Establish correction rules. Agree beforehand on how to correct. Should you only correct when the meaning is completely lost, or should you interrupt immediately for critical errors like pronunciation? No surprise corrections.
okay, let's get into the deep academic foundation of all this fluency work. Let's talk about the research data that proves why collocations matter so much.
Yes, the science of corpus linguistics is what takes our practice beyond just intuition. A corpus is defined as a massive, systematic database of real, natural language, either spoken or written.
And it's collected from native speakers.
Either from native proficient users, that's a reference corpus, or from learners, which is a learner corpus.
And why do these huge databases matter for studying collocations?
They provide the scientific basis for word partnerships. Researchers use advanced statistical measures like log dice and t-score to identify which words appear together more often than just by pure chance.
And that determines how fixed a phrase is.
Exactly. It determines the measurable degree of fixedness, whether a collocation is low, medium, high, or advanced.
So this is the proof behind the strategy. We can literally put a number on how natural a phrase sounds.
Precisely. The research uses these scores to quantify it. For example, the sources note that the fixed phrase point of view is classified as advanced fixedness with a log dice score of 11.11,
Okay.
while a phrase like love language scores way lower at 3.29, marking it as low fixedness. These tools move the study of what sounds natural from personal opinion to verifiable empirical science.
Let's talk about the #1 cause of unnatural-sounding English for advanced learners, the influence of their first language, L1 interference.
Right. L1 interference, technically known as negative transfer, is our M2 term here. It's when a learner unconsciously transfers the rules, the grammar, or the common phrases directly from their native language, their L1, into the second language, their L2.
And this almost always leads to errors.
It leads to structural errors, or most commonly to unnatural collocation choices.
But wait, is all L1 transfer bad? I mean, knowing Spanish helps me a lot with French.
That is an excellent clarification. No, not all transfer is negative. Positive transfer exists. For example, the subject-verb-object-word order is shared by Spanish and English, so that helps.
Right.
But it's the negative transfer, the interference, that causes the unnatural collocations. Because a word-for-word translation fails to capture the unique, usage-determined patterns of the L2.
Let's look at the detailed case study from the research on Arabic L1 interference. It perfectly illustrates how subtle and persistent this barrier is.
The study found recurring issues among Arabic-speaking learners across three categories. First, literal translation errors.
Like what?
Students consistently used mother language instead of the native-like collocations mother tongue, native language, or first language. This was a direct translation of the Arabic phrase "sianu."
So even though they knew the words mother and language, the L1 pattern was stronger.
Exactly. The L1 pattern overruled the L2 pattern, and the result was an unnatural collocation. Second, semantic or usage errors.
Okay.
Learners frequently used the low-fixedness phrase love language to mean they simply liked the language, which is a direct translation of the Arabic word for liking.
But that's not what love language means in English.
Not at all. They were completely unaware that in English, love language has a very fixed, specialized meaning related to relationship styles, acts of service, gifts, and so on. Not simple affection for a subject.
And the third category.
Yeah. Colloquial transfer. They use the structure have language to mean know or speak a language. For instance, you must have another foreign language. This is completely unnatural in English, but is a direct transfer from Arabic colloquial patterns.
Wow, that shows how insidious L1 interference is. Even when the grammar seems mostly right, the choice of collocation can instantly mark you as non-native. Okay, let's do the 5 examples for L1 interference.
1. Formal. L1 interference often results in high rates of verb-noun collocation errors due to syntactic misalignment between the two languages.
Right.
2. Casual. I keep forgetting that my L1 doesn't use the same transfer for prepositions when I'm talking about time in English.
3. Funny. My L1 interference makes my English sound like a direct, clunky, word-for-word movie subtitled from a bad 80s film.
Ha! Yes.
4. Historical. The contrastive analysis hypothesis focused heavily on predicting errors due to L1 interference by rigorously comparing the two language systems.
And the philosophical example. L1 interference reminds us that language is deeply embedded in a unique cultural and structural logic, not just in universal communication rules.
So what are the key collocations and the crucial nuance for dealing with this interference?
We want to learn how to actively avoid L1 interference and manage significant L1 interference when we spot it. We have to recognize that negative L1 transfer can become persistent L1 interference if it's not addressed.
In the nuance.
The nuance is that targeted, explicit instruction on specific L1, L2 collocation differences, like actively teaching heavy rain instead of waiting for the student to translate strong rain, is measurably beneficial.
To really solidify this, let's look at what the corpus research reveals about the types of collocations learners use most often.
Right. The analysis of advanced learner output show that verb-noun collocations are the most frequently used. They account for 50% of all collocations.
Half of them.
And that's followed closely by adjective-noun collocations, which account for about 41%. So focusing on verbs and adjectives first gives you the biggest bang for your buck.
Okay, let's run through 3 classic errors based on that data. Can I say, I made a break after finishing my assignment? I made the time, so I made a break.
It sounds unnatural, although I understand what you mean. The correction is that native speakers take a break. We use the verb take for breaks, naps, and time off. It's a highly fixed verb-noun collocation. You just have to memorize it whole.
Okay, can I say, it was a strong rain yesterday to describe the intensity of the storm?
No. We discussed this, but it's worth repeating. Weather intensity uses the collocation heavy rain, not strong rain. That's the textbook L1 transfer mistake that immediately flags a speaker as non-native.
Can I say, we do a party this weekend if I'm hosting it?
Correction. We say we throw a party or we have a party. Do a party is grammatically sound, but it misses the established idiomatic fixed phrase. Choosing the right vote is essential for fluency.
These small, subtle errors are the ones that prevent a speaker from sounding truly fluent, even when the listener understands the basic meaning. Time for our final check. Let's address 3 common misconceptions directly. Sam, let's tackle specific mistakes learners make when they're handling these structures.
Let's do it.
Mistake number 1. Fixed phrase structure. Can I modify a fixed phrase? For example, can I say, by the by, instead of by the way? I think I heard someone use that once.
Correction and rule.
Yeah.
No. Fixed phrases cannot be changed, modified, or rearranged. They are retrieved as one single indivisible unit. The moment you try to alter break the ice or change by the way to by the by, it violates the restricted co-occurrence rule that defines it. You have to memorize and use them exactly as they are.
Mistake number 2. Noun collocation choice. If I take a training course, can I say, I need to expand my skill after I finish it? Feels close to correct.
It's a near miss, and it's understandable, but the correction is that the preferred highly fixed collocations are almost always develop skill or improve skill. While expand knowledge is a medium fixed collocation, using expand with skill sounds less idiomatic than develop or improve. Always go with the highest fixed, most common pairing.
Mistake number 3. Pacing and clarity. I feel like I speak slowly, so I'm going to start talking really, really fast to sound more fluent. Is that a good strategy?
Correction and rule, absolutely not. That is the fundamental misconception about fluency. Clarity is not speed. The foundation of clear communication is deliberate articulation and appropriate pacing. Speaking quickly without paying attention to clarity just results in mumbling. It reduces your intelligibility and it increases the chances you'll be misunderstood.
So clarity first, then speed.
Always. Focus on clear articulation first, then gradually increase your pace. Never the other way around. Okay, that was a comprehensive breakdown of fluency strategies. Now it's time for the pop quiz to see what concepts stuck.
Fulfilling our promise from the start.
Listener, play along and test your active retention.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Question 1. What is the fundamental difference between articulation and pronunciation?
Okay. Articulation is the physical mechanism using your tongue and lips to make distinct sounds. And pronunciation is the phonetic correctness saying the word according to the accepted rules.
Perfect. Question 2. Name one fixed phrase that functions as a conversational lubricant.
In the long run. Or a really common one, by the way.
Excellent. And question 3. Based on the research, why did the memory palace technique fail for fluency training when you compare it to spaced repetition?
Because the retrieval process from a memory palace is way too slow for the rapid, spontaneous demands of a real conversation. It's great for data, but it's bad for speed.
You nailed it. That is the key difference between passive knowledge storage and active, rapid deployment.
Okay, let me quickly summarize the most important points from this entire deep dive.
Let's hear them.
Our top 3 concepts today were 1, the absolute necessity of psychological safety and facing that fear monster directly. You have to accept mistakes as proof that you're trying.
Yes.
2, collocations and fixed phrases are the absolute shortcut to genuine fluency because they let you bypass that slow, word-by-word assembly line.
The ultimate shortcut.
And 3, the critical need for deliberate practice things like shadowing, self-talk, and articulation drills over passive memorization. That's what the memory palace issue taught us. And our top 5 words and phrases to put into your active vocabulary immediately are collocation, fixed phrase, articulation, shadow speaking, and L1 interference.
All right. Now for your micro-challenge, listener. Take one of the fixed phrases we discussed today, maybe by the way, or in the long run, and commit to using it, either in a real conversation or just in a piece of writing sometime tomorrow.
Just use it once.
Use it deliberately, and notice how naturally it flows when you treat it as one single unit.
That is a fantastic, small, actionable step. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Mastering English Podcast. We absolutely love sharing these research-backed tools with all of you.
Use your new knowledge, and be brave.
I'm Alex. See you next time.
And I'm Sam.